the Constitution is the law. It's America. I mean, I've never heard of a country that wasn't some little third world country where a foreign group of corporations put a puppet president in, and then they do things like this. But that's what the New World Order is. They've done it to third world countries. Now they're doing it here. Now, I was talking to Martinez, was her name, a Marine sergeant, and she said people are starting to wake up, and I wanted to talk to her more, but she hung up, and I want to thank her for calling in. And thank her for listening to the show, and please keep spreading the word. But I wanted to ask her more questions, but she was on Camp Pendleton, so she might have had to go. Who's been holding the longest? We're going to go to Mike, who's U.S. Army. Then we're going to go to Private Jay, who's National Guard. Then we're going to go to Dustin, who's U.S. Army. Then John, Joe, and others. We got a lieutenant colonel there. Let me skip to Joe first, because I want to hear from an officer that I promise we're going to get to. We heard from a Lieutenant Colonel Anthony Schaefer 3 days ago or 2 days ago saying it's treason, it's illegal. What already happened in Libya is Congress is suing the president. Why not just start impeaching him? Well, Walter Jones in North Carolina has started it. The Senate's concurred with a piece of legislation. Is it news that the beginning process of impeachment's begun? No, it's not even in the news. Let's hear from that Lieutenant Colonel. Joe in Pennsylvania. What's your view on this, Lieutenant Colonel?
Alex, I looked at that testimony this morning, and Secretary of Defense Panetta just made me sick with how he was acting towards Senator Sessions. When I heard that, I just couldn't even think straight, because he openly defied him. In fact, Sessions should have ordered him right there. He says, that's illegal, and you come to Congress, and that's an order. And we want to see Congress get more involved in this. You know, sure, we'll do our part in the military, but Congress has to get involved. The Supreme Court has to get involved. And I know we're doing everything we can to talk to our troops and to see what's going to happen if an illegal order is given. I myself have already personally defied several illegal orders in my career, and nothing happened because it was just a private thing that I did. But getting other men to go along with you, you know, I do our studying on the partisans back in World War II against the Germans, and most of them ended up getting shot in the head. So it's just not really a simple thing to just say we're going to defy our orders, although I personally would not carry out a illegal order.
Well, Colonel, if it was done early on, Hitler would have been defeated. It was by successive approximation, as you know, incrementally, then getting the military to swear an oath to him, not to the Republic, the Weimar Republic, similar to ours. The issue here is, it's one thing to say no to a Hitler or a Stalin, because as bad as they were over their country. They weren't under a foreign power. With Obama, they said NATO and the UN, as you said, Colonel, they defied. Here's the boss. Here's the senator. I mean, that's who's got the purse. That's who declares war. Here is the chairman of the committee saying, you do know under the Constitution and under the articles that you're under Congress. And they said, no, we're under NATO. We're under the UN. That's where we get our authority. And Sessions is like, what? And they kept saying it and saying it. As you know, he was defying him. And Congress has the authority to start arresting these people. I mean, they don't just have the authority to start impeachment. And I'm sorry, folks, people are like, arrest them. What are you supposed to do when they come in and say, I take my orders from a foreign group? I mean, Colonel, your take on that.
I'm involved in recruiting, and I ask every potential recruit whether they would disobey an unlawful order. And every one of them has said yes, but they say, what is an unlawful order? And each service has their own courses they give and their own definition of it, so it's very difficult. But the key to me, even during NDAA, we follow this closely. We watch the vote. We watch the way they put in all of the different amendments. And what did Congress do? Virtually nothing. We need Congress to back us up and not just have us be the only ones that are going to try to defy the president or disobey an order. If we could get Congress more fired up, then we'd be even more apt to go along. And
well, Joe, let me be completely clear. You've hit the nail on the head here. Okay, you're right. I'm asking the military to speak up because the Congress are a bunch of paid-off, blackmailed crooks. Now, this is so brazen that they're freaking out and talking about impeachment. So I'm saying we've got to really push them. And quite frankly, I'm looking for sacrificial lambs here. If it's myself, whatever the case is, you know, politically, whatever, I don't want to be hurt, but this is the way it is. Obviously, the only way to supercharge this is for the military to simply, if I was a colonel, I would go to my commanding officer and say, well, here's Congressman Walter Jones reading the Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 11, that is a high crime and misdemeanor for the president to launch military actions without congressional approval. And then they go through all that. And then I'd say it goes further, Colonel or General, whoever is above you. It goes further. As you know, they're saying the authority comes from the UN in these statements. What is your position on that? And because we've got to head this off at the pass. I mean, there's nothing wrong with reading the Constitution and saying, my commander-in-chief is not under the command of the UN. The president, you know, I mean, it's crazy. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
One of the things that I did early on was I refused to salute the United Nations flag, and I also refused to salute Henry Kissinger when he was Secretary of State. But besides that, I've called my congressman in my own district where my home is, and I've asked for him to put in writing that he supports Congressman the Jones resolution. I've already found out that there's a bipartisan effort to co-sign that. They're going to try to move that as quickly and as possible, and I'm getting hundreds of copies of that. I'm going to be passing that out to every military member I can get my hands on.
Good, beautiful, and you're absolutely right that it's their job and the American people's job. I'm not. It's just that in every case, like with the fall of East Germany or any of it, it ends up being the military that is going to make the decision if they go into hot tyranny on whether they succeed or not. And I mean in succeed in launching the Civil War, which the globalists have been making plans for, as you know. We don't want to be in a civil war with the military and police. I've seen enough in my life to not be macho and to want to have this fight. But, you know, the fight is going to come, and it's a mindless fight. We need to work with the military and police now to avert this. I mean, I knew, Colonel, when I went to urban warfare drills 14, 15 years ago, that's when the scales came off my eyes. And I witnessed mainly the Marines, in most cases, training to occupy U.S. cities and confiscate firearms of citizens. And I will tell the military, if they try widespread gun confiscation, it will result in absolute anarchy and huge casualties on both sides. And I know the military is having that discussion. I mean, do you have confidence that the military, even with some ridiculous scenario, you know, that they push, will say no to gun confiscation?
I can speak for myself that I would not authorize my men to go and to do it. But I just hope that they're not going to be some of these knuckle draggers, as you call them, that just enjoy that kind of thing and don't even think of the consequences of it or the constitutionality of it. You know, these idiots like Mark Levin, I used to listen to him until he started every day pounding on Ron Paul, and he's just a spokesperson for who knows what in this Hillsdale organization. They can bring things before Congress, but they're always bringing some stupid bill that means nothing. Let's get them behind all of this, and let's get to the Supreme Court. Why is it so hard to bring a bill to the Supreme Court and decide if something's unconstitutional or not?
I hear you. God bless you, Colonel. Stay in touch. Really good points. I know I talked to a lot of military, including Brass, who's upset and concerned, and I know a bunch of the last Joint Chiefs of Staff and the chairman, the last 2 rounds, kept saying no to all this and no to Bush. Obama, because he's, quote, liberal, has gotten so much through, arresting reporters, charging them, you know, under the Espionage Act for whistleblowers, exposing corruption and bid rigging and crimes and shipping guns into Mexico. All right, Mike in New York, get started. We'll come back to you after the break. He's U.S. Army. Thanks for holding, Mike. Go ahead.
How you doing? How you doing, Alex? It's great to hear from you and stuff like that. I think one of the things, I think Ron Paul could be a great candidate for president of the United States, but I think a lot of people in the black communities and Latino communities don't really know who Ron Paul is. I think they think he's a racist, which we all know is not true, but they don't really know he sticks up for the Constitution, that he helps everyone. I think people, because when I talk to other soldiers and stuff like that, black people and stuff, they think Ron Paul is a racist. because the media hardly talks about it. If they do talk about it.
Sure. But I mean, specifically on the Ron Paul front, yeah, just because politicians promote and say they care about some racial group or another, that's all talk. The Constitution is what everybody gets. I mean, we had a caller yesterday point out, I'm not bashing women here, but the court systems are geared towards women and against men in family rights. There's all sorts of discrimination out there that isn't about religion or race. Most of it's economic. You know what? Stay there. I want to come back to get your take, though, as a military person on this, because this is the big enchilada. This is a foreign coup. Do you hear me? All right, let's hurry to your calls now, because I've got to actually get to the audio and video of the treason, of the foreign coup in front of everyone. And then all this other news I haven't even gotten to yet, but finishing up with Mike in New York is U.S. Army. I understand you bringing up Ron Paul, but shifting into what we're discussing here, what do you think of the president, the SecDef, all of them saying, not just that the president is a dictator, basically, but that he takes his orders from foreign powers? What's your view on that?
I think it's a shame. I think it's terrible. He's not really our president, because you're supposed to uphold the Constitution. That's your job. Your job is not to work for the UN or NATO or anybody else or J.P. Morgan or the Rothschilds or anybody else. Your job is to uphold and defend the Constitution.
That's right. That's right. And we're so trained to think of a foreign power, you know, some dictator like Mussolini that we're fighting. It's, you know, it's banks. It's these mega corporations that God bless you. I appreciate your call. We have got to tell Congress. In fact, this is my message that I'm going to give them today. I'm going to call them myself today. Not that it's superpower that I call them. It's just that I don't just talk the talk, I walk the walk. When I call them, I'm going to say, listen, this is treason. It's a foreign coup, openly announced. It's illegal. And anybody that doesn't sign on to the bill to start the impeachment process is aiding and abetting. If somebody robs a bank and they're coming along through your farm and you say, hey, come on in here, stay with me, just give me some of the money, you're now just as guilty of aiding and abetting as the guy that robbed the bank. You are guilty. So you better choose what side you're on. This isn't going to go like Germany where the authoritarians win. Let me tell you something. We're going to stomp the New World Order. They're going to go a lot further before it implodes, but we're going to beat them. All right, who's been holding the longest next? Let's go to Jay, and then Dustin, and then John, and then Joshua, and then that'll be it for calls from the military. We've got a major calling in, a captain, but I'm going to go to the folks in order here real fast. Let's go to Private Jay, National Guard from Texas. Go ahead.
Hey, Alex, how's it going?
Man, I tell you, I'm just like the Colonel earlier. I literally could hardly talk this morning. I have a huge headache. And I'm having to argue with my wife about not leaving the United States. I mean, I'm freaked out. We're in trouble, okay? We're in trouble.
After watching that video, I got so upset I was shaking. I was looking at that, just thinking, okay, so what's the next step? UN's going to start appointing our president? You know, I mean, how far are we going to go? I mean, every one of these, the president, Congress, everybody takes their oath to the Constitution. Some people don't even know what our Constitution entails. I don't know. It makes me so upset sometimes that people just don't understand what our country was founded on. You know, I do not understand why Congress is even just sitting there not doing a dang thing.
Well, because they're insider trading. They're playing golf. They're having fun. But I mean, I think they're starting to get, though, that you mean we're going to lose our power too? Yeah, you can't just rubber stamp and hand it over to the National Security Council. That's all a bunch of avowed globalists, and then not expect to totally be turned into a rubber stamp. And then they're not even a rubber stamp. They're told you have no bearing on us. And not only is the president a dictator, he is a minion of